What if I told you that the shape of your room is actively lying to your brain, and the rectangle you're living in right now is actually making your home feel smaller than it really is? Architects have known this for decades. Bees figured it out millions of years ago. And in 2026, a growing number of home builders, tiny house enthusiasts, and off-grid pioneers are rediscovering it. The secret is the hexagon. 6 sides, no dead corners, and a spatial illusion so powerful, neuroscientists have literally wired people up with EEG headsets inside virtual rooms to study it. I'm going to show you exactly why 6-sided rooms feel dramatically bigger than they measure, what the science actually says, how an award-winning student team used this geometry to build a compact, sustainable home that stunned competition judges, and what you need to know if you're even a little bit curious about building one yourself. Stay till the end, because I'm going to reveal the one real downside of hexagonal rooms that almost nobody talks about, and it might genuinely change your plans. If you're new here, this channel is all about building smarter, not bigger. Hit subscribe and the notification bell so you never miss a video. We drop research-backed content on alternative housing, DIY builds, and real cost breakdowns every week. Now, let's talk about hexagons. Let us start with the room you are probably living in right now. For walls, for corners, all meetings are at 90 degrees. It is the default. It is what every developer builds, what every furniture company designs for, and what most of us have never questioned. But here's the thing about those corners. Your brain hates them. Research in neuroarchitecture, that is the science of how built environments affect your brain, has found that sharp angles and hard 90-degree junctions can subtly activate the amygdala, which is your brain's threat detection center. In nature, sharp angles usually mean danger. Think thorns, cliff edges, splintered wood. Your nervous system has not fully caught up with the fact that you are living in a drywall box and not a forest. On some low level, below conscious plane, those corners are sending a mild alert signal. But the psychological cost of rectangles goes even further than that. Think about how you actually use the corners of a rectangular room. Be honest with yourself. That corner in your bedroom probably has a laundry pile. The corner in your living room has an awkward lamp or a plant that is slowly dying. The corners of your kitchen cabinets are home to items you have forgotten you own. Stuff pushed 12 to 18 inches back into a zone that is technically accessible, but practically invisible. Interior designers have a term for this: dead space. And research suggests the dead corners of a rectangular room represent somewhere between 15 and 20% of a room's total visual real estate, space your brain registers as empty, awkward, and unresolved. Now here's where it gets interesting. There is a fascinating study that found rectangular room corners actually impair memory. When people were asked to memorize visual information on walls separated by a corner, they remembered it significantly worse than information on the same unbroken wall. The 90-degree corner literally acts as a mental divider. It breaks the brain's ability to process a room as a single, unified space. And there's one more issue: sound. In a rectangular room, 90-degree wall intersections bounce sound directly back at the source, creating echo, flutter, and acoustic muddiness. It is why untreated rectangular recording studios sound terrible. The angles work against you. So we have got a shape that gives your brain a low-level anxiety signal, wastes your corners, divides your perception of the space, and creates bad acoustics. And yet, we keep building them, because that is what the industry defaults to. Today we're going to challenge that default. Here is a quick geometry lesson that is genuinely worth knowing. Honeybees build their combs in hexagons. Not circles, not triangles, not squares, hexagons. And mathematicians spent centuries trying to formally prove what bees apparently evolved to know instinctively. The hexagon is the most efficient shape for dividing a flat surface into equal cells using the least total perimeter, and therefore the least material. This is known in mathematics as the Honeycomb Conjecture, and it was formally proven in 1999 after centuries of debate. What does that mean for a house? It means that for a given enclosed area, a hexagon uses less wall material than a rectangle. You are getting more interior volume for less building envelope. And when you're building a tiny home, an ADU, or an off-grid cabin, every square foot of wall costs money in materials, insulation, labor, and long-term energy bills. The energy efficiency angle is real and measurable. The key concept here is the surface area to volume ratio. Every exterior surface of your home, walls, roof, floor, is a potential heat exchange point. The more exterior surface area you have relative to your interior volume, the more energy your home loses in winter and gains in summer. A long, skinny rectangular home has a terrible ratio. A compact hexagonal home has a much better one. Research into building shapes and thermal performance has consistently found that hexagonal and dome-shaped structures outperform rectangular buildings on thermal compactness. Studies on dome structures, which share the hexagon's efficiency logic, have documented up to 30% less exterior surface area compared to a comparable rectangular box. And that translates directly to lower heating and cooling costs year over year. The hexagon also has a structural advantage. Its geometry distributes load across all 6 sides, creating inherent rigidity without requiring as much internal bracing. It is the same principle that makes a beehive wax cell incredibly strong despite being made from something as fragile as wax. Applied to a building, this means you can often open up interior space in ways a rectangular structure would not allow without significant structural engineering. And the acoustics? Remember how I said rectangular rooms bounce sound back at the source? Hexagons do the opposite. The angled walls scatter sound in multiple directions rather than returning it to the origin. This is the same principle used in high-end concert hall design. In a well-built hexagonal room, you get natural acoustic diffusion, less echo, less reverb, more warmth. So bees figured out efficiency, structural strength, material minimization, and acoustics all in one shape. Not bad for an insect with a brain the size of sesame seed. Okay, we have covered why your rectangle is quietly failing you and why the hexagon is geometrically superior on paper. But we still have not gotten to the main question. Why does a 6-sided room feel so much bigger than it measures? That is coming up next, and I'm going to walk you through the actual neuroscience behind it. Also, we're going to look at a real hexagonal home built by college students that earned a 6-figure grant and stole the show at a national sustainable building competition. Stick around. Now we're getting to the really fascinating stuff. There's a growing field of research called neuroarchitecture, and the central insight is that space is not neutral. Every wall angle, ceiling height, corner type, and surface curve is sending a constant stream of data to your nervous system, mostly below conscious awareness. And the shape of a room matters far more than most people realize. Let us break down exactly what a hexagonal room does to your brain, step by step. Reason 1. 120-degree angles do not register as boundaries. In a regular hexagon, every interior angle is 120 degrees. Your eyes process that wall junction as a gradual turn rather than a hard stop. When you're standing in the center of a hexagonal room and your eyes sweep around the space, they do not hit the visual hard breaks the way they do at a 90-degree corner. The space appears to flow continuously, rather than being chopped into 4 distinct segments. Your brain perceives the whole room as a single unified volume, not 4 individual walls. And that perception of continuity registers as openness. Reason 2. More wall faces means more light angles. A rectangular room with 4 walls has, at most, 4 major window-facing orientations. A hexagonal room has 6. Even if you do not place a window on every face, you get more opportunities for angled natural light to enter from multiple directions. And light direction changes how deep a room appears. When light comes from one direction in a rectangular room, it creates a bright side and a shadow side, which can make the room feel narrower. Multiple light sources from varied angles fill the space more evenly, reducing shadow contrast and making the entire room feel more voluminous. Reason 3. No dead zones, no perceptual anchors. Remember those dead corners we talked about? In a hexagonal room, they simply do not exist. Every wall face is equally accessible and equally visible from the center of the room. There is no zone your eye skips over as unusable. This matters psychologically because dead space actually makes a room feel smaller. Your brain reads the usable, active portion of a room, not the total square footage. Eliminate the dead zones, and your brain reads the entire room as active space. That is a significant perceptual upgrade. Reason 4. the science on curved and angled spaces. Neuroarchitecture studies using virtual reality tracking, where participants wore EEG headsets while moving through digitally constructed rooms, have directly measured how room geometry affects mood, stress levels, and creative output. The findings are consistent. Curved and angled room geometries produce better mood outcomes, lower arousal stress, and higher creativity scores than rectangular rooms. Researchers have concluded that interior form is a seriously underrated variable in how spaces affect human well-being. A hexagonal room is not curved, but it shares a key property with curved rooms. It removes the hard 90-degree visual break that sharp corners create. The 120-degree angles sit in a middle ground between the rigid right angle and a smooth curve. And based on what we know from neuroarchitecture research, that middle ground is psychologically friendlier than a standard box. Reason 5. Movement feels different. In a rectangular room, your natural movement paths are basically a grid. You walk along the walls, cut across the center, and turn at 90 degrees. In a hexagonal room, movement becomes more organic. Paths radiate from the center outward in more directions, and the angled walls naturally guide you around the perimeter in a continuous flow rather than a series of square-cornered halts. Research into architectural forms and brain dynamics has shown that the way a person physically moves through a space shapes how they perceive and remember it. Freer movement through a space correlates with perceiving that space as larger and more open. Put all 5 of these together and you get a room that, even if you measured it against a rectangular room of identical square footage, would feel noticeably, meaningfully bigger. Not because it is bigger, because your brain is processing it differently. The theory is compelling, but what does it look like in practice? Let's talk about who is actually building these things. The UCR HEx House, one of the most talked about examples of hexagonal design, comes from an award-winning team of engineering students at UC Riverside. They engineered a brilliant modular prototype called the HEx House, a sustainable honeycomb footprint specifically designed for extreme energy efficiency and maximum livability. By utilizing pure hexagonal geometry, they completely eliminated space-consuming hallways, allowing every single square inch of the compact footprint to serve as usable living space. The design was so structurally sound and thermally efficient that it secured a $100,000 grant from the EPA's P3 competition and went on to stun judges at the Solar Decathlon. It proved to the world that alternative geometry is not just an indie design trend. It is an award-winning building science. The HEx House, rapid deployment emergency housing. On the humanitarian side, a nonprofit architecture firm called Architect for Society has developed what they call the HEx House, a low-cost, rapidly deployable hexagonal home designed for displaced populations and disaster relief contexts. The structure ships in pieces and can be assembled by the end users themselves. The hexagonal geometry is central to the design. It gives the structure inherent rigidity without requiring complex internal framing, reduces material waste, and creates a living space that feels dignified and open despite its compact footprint. This is the hexagon's efficiency logic applied at its most essential level. The Hexagonal Living Sustainability Project, a Dutch sustainability firm called Accept Integrated Sustainability, has developed a larger-scale concept called the Hexagonal Living Project, a housing model designed for small self-sufficient communities. Their approach merges residential, agricultural, and ecological spaces using hexagonal geometry, creating an interconnected layout where the shape of individual units and the overall community plan work together. The hexagonal modules can be combined and expanded in ways rectangular units simply cannot, because hexagons tessellate without creating awkward residual spaces between units. Geodesic domes and hexagonal grid structures. You may have seen the surge of interest in geodesic dome homes over the past few years, and the hexagon is central to that trend too. Geodesic domes use a structural grid made primarily of hexagonal and pentagonal panels. The hexagonal facets give these structures exceptional strength. Geodesic structures can withstand more than twice the wind and snow pressure compared to traditional rectangular structures, according to data from the U.S. National Institute of Building Sciences. The spherical form also dramatically reduces surface area, up to 30% less exterior envelope compared to a comparable rectangular box. which directly translates to lower heating and cooling costs. For tiny house builders and off-grid enthusiasts, that surface efficiency means less insulation material, less heat loss, and lower energy bills. Benefits that compound over years of living. Hexagonal design in feng shui and cultural tradition. It is worth noting that the appeal of hexagonal architecture is not purely a modern Western phenomenon. In feng shui practice, the hexagon symbolizes higher wisdom, celestial power, and balanced energy. Ancient Islamic art used hexagonal tessellation extensively in architecture, recognizing the shape's aesthetic harmony and geometric completeness. The ancient Greeks studied and incorporated hexagonal geometry in their architectural explorations. This shape has been independently recognized across cultures and centuries as something fundamentally right, long before we had neuroarchitecture research to explain why. Okay, I promise you honesty. So let us talk about what hexagonal rooms are actually like to build and live in, including the stuff that does not make the Pinterest boards. The real advantages. No load-bearing interior walls required. Because structural load distributes across all 6 walls simultaneously, a hexagonal room does not need interior columns or walls for support the way a wide-span rectangular room does. This gives you genuine open-plan flexibility, which is a huge deal in a tiny or compact home. No wasted hallway footage. As the UCR team demonstrated, a well-designed hexagonal floor plan connects rooms directly without dedicating any square footage to corridors. In tiny house design, hallways are the enemy. Hexagonal geometry eliminates them organically. Better passive solar performance. A hexagonal building has more wall faces than a rectangle. This means more flexibility in window placement. You can orient multiple faces for morning light, afternoon light, and passive solar gain without the compromises that come with only 4 walls. Modular expandability. Hexagons tessellate. That means you can add a hexagonal module to an existing hexagonal structure without creating dead-end junctions or awkward transitional spaces. Your home can grow in phases in a way that feels coherent and planned rather than cobbled together. The 2026 cost reality. Let us talk about the actual 2026 price tag, because your audience deserves the full picture. While the hexagon theoretically saves you money on raw perimeter wall materials, the reality of the construction market can bite back hard. In 2026, standard rectangular tiny home framing costs average around $35 to $55 per square foot for labor and materials. Because a hexagon requires custom 120-degree corner framing, intricate miter cuts on every piece of top plate lumber, and specialized roof valley rafter engineering, contractors routinely charge a 20 to 35% premium for labor on non-standard geometry builds. Additionally, standard drywall sheets come in 4 by 8 rectangles. Forcing those sheets into 120-degree angles means significantly more off-cut waste, often increasing your material waste factor from a standard 10% up to around 22%. If you are building a honeycomb home, you must budget for the specialized labor up front, or be prepared to tackle those highly complex geometric angled cuts yourself as a skilled DIYer. The honest challenges. Furniture is a real problem. This is the big one. Almost every piece of furniture sold commercially is designed for rectangular rooms. Rectangular sofas, rectangular beds, rectangular dining tables. Put a king-size rectangular bed in a hexagonal bedroom, and you are immediately fighting the geometry. You will find yourself with triangular gaps between furniture and angled walls that are awkward to use and hard to fill. This is not unsolvable. Custom built-ins work well, but it adds cost and requires planning that a rectangular room simply does not. Permitting and zoning. Hexagonal buildings are not standard. In many jurisdictions, the code and permitting process is designed around rectangular structures. You may encounter friction, confusion, or the need for additional engineering sign-offs. Do your homework locally before committing to this build path. Wayfinding and orientation. In a rectangular building, you always know roughly where you are relative to the exterior. In a hexagonal building, especially with connected modules, this intuitive orientation can break down. Guests may find the layout harder to navigate. Emergency egress paths need to be clearly planned and communicated. Here is my honest bottom line on the practical side. Hexagonal rooms are genuinely superior in several measurable ways. spatial perception, acoustics, energy efficiency, structural strength, and modular potential. But they require more upfront planning, more custom solutions, and more careful contractor sourcing than a rectangular build. They are not for someone who wants a quick, turnkey solution. They are for someone building intentionally, who has thought carefully about what they want their space to do, and who is willing to put in the work. I promised you at the start that I would reveal the one real downside of hexagonal rooms that almost nobody talks about. Here it is. It is not the furniture. It is not the framing costs. It is not even permitted. It is this, the very thing that makes hexagonal rooms feel bigger, the continuous visual flow, the lack of hard corners, the way your eye sweeps around the space without stopping, also makes them harder to zone. In a rectangular room, you have implicit zones. The corner over there is the reading nook. The wall facing the window is the desk zone. The two walls flanking the door frame the entry. Right angles create natural psychological anchors that help you organize both your furniture and your sense of purpose in a room. In a hexagonal room, the flowing continuity that feels so liberating can also feel directionless. Without deliberate design intervention, rugs to define zones, built-ins to anchor activities, strategic furniture placement to create implied corners, a hexagonal room can feel beautiful but slightly unmoored. You walk in and it is gorgeous, but you're not sure where to go or what to do. The fix is design intentionality. Every hexagonal room that works brilliantly has been deliberately zoned by someone who understood this challenge. But if you go in expecting the geometry to solve everything for you, if you just stick a sofa in the middle and hope for the best, you may end up with a room that looks incredible in photos and feels oddly unsatisfying to actually live in. The Honeycomb House can genuinely feel massive, but only if you design it that way on purpose. So here's where we landed today. Your rectangular room is quietly working against you. In your acoustics, in your spatial perception, in the corners your brain writes off as dead zones. The hexagon fixes all of that. 6 sides, 120-degree angles, no dead corners, better acoustics, better energy efficiency, inherent structural strength, and a psychological experience of space that legitimately makes you feel like you're living in more room than you're paying for. Real builders are using this geometry right now. From student-built passive homes winning national competition grants, to rapid deployment humanitarian housing, to off-grid domes slicing 30% off heating and cooling bills. This is not fringe stuff. It is geometry backed by neuroscience and building physics. If you are planning a tiny house, an ADU, an off-grid cabin, or any alternative build, the hexagonal footprint deserves serious consideration in your planning phase. Not because it is trendy, because it actually works. If this video gave you something useful, hit the like button. It genuinely helps this channel reach more builders who are trying to do things smarter. Subscribe if you have not already. And if you are working on an alternative build right now, drop your project in the comments. I love seeing what this community is creating. Next up on this channel, we're going deep on another unconventional design choice that has been getting serious traction in 2026. You will not want to miss it. See you there.